Right now, somewhere in the world, 2 billion cups of coffee are being prepared. Not over the course of a week, not over the course of a day, every single hour. Coffee is not just the most popular beverage on the planet, it is the most widely consumed psychoactive substance in human history. And most of the people drinking it have absolutely no idea what is happening inside their body from the moment that first sip touches their lips. Here is what is fascinating. Coffee has been studied more than almost any other dietary substance in the history of nutritional science. The research is overwhelming, consistent, and, for most coffee drinkers, surprisingly good news. People who drink 3 to 5 cups per day have measurably lower rates of type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, liver cirrhosis, and multiple forms of cancer compared to people who drink none at all. A single cup of coffee contains over 1,000 distinct chemical compounds. Caffeine is only one of them. So what is actually happening inside you right now if you drank coffee this morning? Why does it make you feel alert? Why does it stop working over time? Why does drinking it at 2 p.m. destroy your sleep even if you feel completely fine falling asleep? Why do some people feel calm after 3 cups while others feel anxious after one? And what is coffee doing to your heart, your liver, your brain, and your gut every single morning that you keep drinking it? In this video, we are going to answer every one of those questions with the actual science, not the headlines, not the contradictions, not the opinions. The precise biology of what coffee does to your body, from the first sip to the last effect leaving your system hours later. To understand what coffee does every morning, you first need to understand a molecule called adenosine. Because without adenosine, caffeine would do nothing at all. Adenosine is a byproduct of cellular energy use. Every time your brain cells burn energy, which they do every second of every waking hour, adenosine is produced as a waste product. Throughout the day, adenosine builds up steadily in the brain and binds to specific receptor sites on brain cells, docking stations designed specifically to receive adenosine molecules. The more adenosine that accumulates and binds to these receptors, the more you feel tired, foggy, and ready for sleep. This is not a malfunction, it is your brain's precise biological system for tracking how long you have been awake and signaling that rest is needed. Here is where caffeine comes in. And here is the mechanism that most people have never heard explained properly. Caffeine is structurally similar enough to adenosine that it fits into those exact same receptor sites and blocks them. Caffeine does not give you energy. It does not create wakefulness. It does one thing. It prevents your brain from receiving the tiredness signal that adenosine is continuously broadcasting. The adenosine is still there, still accumulating in your brain while you drink your morning coffee. Caffeine just locks the doors so the signal cannot get through. This is why the effect is temporary and why it ends with a crash. When caffeine eventually clears from your system, all of that accumulated adenosine floods simultaneously back to the now unblocked receptors. The tiredness you were suppressing does not disappear while you are drinking coffee, it waits. And when caffeine clears, it returns all at once, which is the afternoon crash that regular coffee drinkers know well. Here is the part of the coffee science that most people have never heard, and that changes how most people think about when they drink it. The half-life of caffeine, the time your body needs to eliminate half of the caffeine from a single cup, is approximately 5 to 6 hours in most adults. This number seems manageable until you do the math. If you drink a cup of coffee at 2 p.m., roughly half of that caffeine is still in your bloodstream at 7 p.m. 1/4 of it is still circulating at midnight. In slow caffeine metabolizers, a genetic variation that affects a significant portion of the population, the half-life can extend to 8 or even 10 hours, meaning a single afternoon cup is still partially active well into the early morning hours. Research consistently shows that caffeine consumed even 6 hours before bedtime measurably reduces total sleep time and disrupts sleep architecture, the pattern of sleep stages your brain cycles through each night. The effect is particularly damaging to slow-wave deep sleep, the most physically restorative phase of sleep. enter REM sleep, the phase most critical for memory consolidation and emotional regulation. And here is what makes this genuinely alarming. Most people who are experiencing caffeine-disrupted sleep do not feel it. They fall asleep without difficulty. They believe their sleep is fine. But the measurements tell a different story. The depth of sleep is reduced, the restoration is incomplete, and the next morning they wake up already slightly behind, which makes them reach for coffee sooner and drink more of it. This is the hidden cycle that underlies much of modern fatigue. The tool being used to manage tiredness is quietly perpetuating it. Now, here is where the story becomes genuinely surprising. Because caffeine is only one small part of what your morning coffee is doing to your body, and it may not even be the most important part. Coffee is one of the richest dietary sources of polyphenols, a broad class of plant-derived compounds with powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. In Western diets, coffee is actually the single largest source of dietary antioxidants for most adults, surpassing fruits, vegetables, and every other food simply because of the volume consumed daily. These polyphenols work silently throughout the day, reducing oxidative stress in cells, suppressing chronic inflammatory pathways, and protecting cellular DNA from cumulative damage. This is the mechanism behind one of coffee's most consistently documented benefits, its relationship with type 2 diabetes. The chlorogenic acids in coffee, a class of polyphenols, directly improve insulin sensitivity and reduce the rate at which glucose is absorbed from the gut into the bloodstream after meals. Research shows that this effect is almost entirely independent of caffeine. Decaffeinated coffee produces nearly identical reductions in diabetes risk as regular coffee, which tells you precisely which compounds are doing the protective work. The liver effects are equally striking. Regular coffee consumption, including decaf, is associated with significantly lower rates of liver cirrhosis, which is the scarring of liver tissue from chronic damage, as well as lower rates of liver cancer and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Multiple compounds in coffee appear to reduce liver inflammation and slow the progression of fibrosis, the buildup of scar tissue that characterizes advanced liver disease. For an organ that processes everything you eat, drink, and absorb, this protection is not trivial. Everything covered so far explains what coffee does. But there is one dimension of the daily coffee habit that the science consistently identifies as critically important and that almost nobody considers. It is not how much coffee you drink, it is when. Cortisol is your body's primary alertness and stress hormone, and it follows a precise daily rhythm. In the first 30 to 45 minutes after waking, cortisol spikes sharply. This is called the cortisol awakening response, and it is your body's built-in biological wakefulness mechanism. It is the reason most people feel reasonably alert for the first few minutes after waking before the tiredness fully sets in. This natural cortisol peak is doing something important. It is activating your stress response system, sharpening your cognition, and preparing your body for the demands of the day. When you consume caffeine during this cortisol peak window, which is exactly what most people do when they drink coffee immediately after waking, you are not adding to your alertness. You are layering a chemical stimulant on top of a biological system that is already running. The net effect over time is that your cortisol awakening response becomes blunted. Your body learns to rely on the caffeine rather than the cortisol, and gradually, your baseline alertness without caffeine declines, which is experienced as needing coffee just to feel normal, rather than drinking coffee to feel better than normal. Research suggests that delaying the first cup of coffee by 90 minutes to 2 hours after waking, allowing the cortisol awakening response to complete its natural cycle, preserves caffeine's effectiveness, reduces tolerance buildup, and restores the natural morning energy system that caffeine was undermining. It is a small timing adjustment that produces measurable differences in how alert and energized regular coffee drinkers feel throughout the day. Your morning cup of coffee is not just a beverage, it is a daily pharmaceutical intervention in your brain's most fundamental wakefulness system. Understanding the biology behind it does not mean drinking less of it. It means drinking it in a way that actually works, which, as it turns out, requires understanding exactly what your body is already doing without it.